what I would like to hear about is just Twitter's latest moves into online shopping. So all their click-to-buy buttons, I'm very interested to hear where their strategy is moving in terms of that, and also with the new Twitter algorithm. I would love to hear about that.
Good evening, everybody, and it's an absolute pleasure to be able to come down and talk to you guys this evening. What I thought I'd talk to you about this evening was the way content consumption has changed as a result of a shift to mobile, primarily with something we call the stream. So I thought I'd first start off with this tweet. I'm not sure if any of you saw this tweet. It kind of did the rounds on Twitter. It might have made it to South Africa. It got about 26,000 retweets. For any of you who don't speak youth, WTF means what there, and I think you can probably guess the last bit there. But I'll just quickly read out this tweet. Can't quite see it. WTF is wrong with this dude. What is he looking at? The world. And if we delve into this photo a little bit more, what you have here is a bunch of people on a train platform, commuters, all heavily engrossed with their mobile screens, streaming through, looking at the latest news. And then you have this odd chap at the back who's kind of staring, glary-eyed into nowhere. And you kind of think, what the fuck is this guy doing? It's a really interesting sort of observation of how captivated we are by our mobile phone, something we often forget. It kind of makes you think when you're sitting around a dining table, you've just eaten your food, and then suddenly everyone's just on their phone, just doing all this. And then you're the one person without your phone. You're thinking, well, you could be a little bit more bloody social. Anyhow, it kind of reminds me of this tweet. This is a tweet from Alain de Botton. And what Alain says here is that an individual today has to be more interesting than what's going on that person's smartphone. And I guess the implication for brands is there, that as brands, we have to be more interesting. We have to generate content or something that's more interesting than the person who's playing Angry Birds or some other shitty game on their phone. And moving on to this is an image from 1946. It's a train carriage. And here you can replace no phone man that we saw in the previous image for no paper woman. This is an image of the New Yorker, December 2006. And if we take a closer look at it, it's a bunch of people sitting in an airport lounge. And what are they doing? They're all reading books. So this was only 6 to 8 years ago, and they're all reading books. They're not reading Kindles. They're not reading iPads. So again, it's in stark contrast to the behavior that we see today. So we've kind of gone back, we've looked in time, we kind of understand how captivating the mobile devices has become, and we're kind of almost bewitched by it. And when we think about bewitchment, I was really fascinated by a stat from an American university, which effectively surveyed all their students and said that they felt phantom vibrations. 89% of them felt phantom vibrations. Okay, so it's quite bizarre that we got to a point in our human culture where we believe that people are always trying to get in contact with us, and we're kind of making up these magical sensations. So a little bit of a perspective around Twitter and who we are and how we think of mobile. Very much a fast-growing platform, 271 million plus users per active 30 days. But the interesting part of that is we were born mobile, and as a consequence, 78% of our audience globally accesses Twitter via a mobile device, and that percentage is a lot higher in Africa. And as a consequence of this, we're always thinking about the way we iterate on mobile based on the way that consumers are consuming content on the mobile device. And as a result of being on mobile, it's of no surprise that 50% of our audience access Twitter during their commutes, and 60% access Twitter while they're watching television. So I guess the first thing that everybody in this room should be thinking when they think around mobile is around parallel consumption. So has everyone heard of the concept of meerkatting? If you don't know what meerkatting is, it is in fact the behavior that is observed when someone is flicking between two screens. Try and give you a little bit of a flavor of what this looks like. It looks a little bit strange. This was some research that was carried out by a company called ThinkBox in the UK. So what you have here, hopefully it's playing on the screens, is a bunch of people looking at two screens, kind of flicking crazily as they're distracted by two devices, their eyes flickering from left to right. So I guess the first thing that you'd probably start deducing from this is that neither medium is being particularly effective. And this is something that we really wanted to get a little bit more information on, specifically, the importance of it to brands, the whole dual screening. What is the actual impact of that? And to that effect, we ran a study over a 2-year period within the telco industry, which looked at the efficacy of Twitter and TV. And what we found was that when you use Twitter and TV together, in terms of a CPA for telco brands, it dropped by 36%. So that's an incredible, huge, impactful number. And I guess when you take that into context and we think about it, in fact, the mediums will actually work better when they're placed together rather than in silo. So I said I was going to talk a little bit about content consumption, and if there's one man who knows a lot about this, it's Evan Spiegel. If you don't know who Evan Spiegel is and you don't recognize the logo there, he is the CEO of Snapchat. He gave a fantastic speech earlier on in the year where he talked about his observations of the changes in the internet. One of the key things that Evan brought up was the fact that there is no longer a separation between online and offline. And you're probably thinking, well, I kind of know that. I work in digital, and that's not particularly interesting. But it's very interesting when you think of it in the object of profiles. So effectively, what he said was that back in the days when we had online and offline, your internet connection was obviously fixed. Okay, so as a consequence of that, you were only online when you're at work or you're at home. And if you weren't in that particular space, you simply weren't online. And in that context, a profile page was incredibly important. If you think about it like in the days of fixed landlines and the answer phone, the profile page acted as a proxy for you to be able to contact me when I wasn't available. It also acted as a proxy to understand my interests, where I was from, what college I went to. So incredibly important. But with the advent of mobile, all of that changed, and the idea of a profile page suddenly seems slightly less important. And the way that Evan sums that up is he sums up online identity as being us being the sum of our published experience. What he means by that is that you can judge me based on the last three things I post. You can understand who I am by the last 3 things that I tweet, the photos and the videos. That gives you an idea of who I am. So it's a fascinating change to see, and it's a really interesting insight and observation. It's affecting the way that content is consumed, and it's creating this thing that we now know as the stream. And I'm not talking about a stream just in apps. I'm also talking in the wider internet as well. Something that was of particular interest to me over the past sort of year or so, and I'm sure it has been to all of you here in South Africa, is the Pistorius trial. And as I was following the Pistorius trial, what you'll notice on a bunch of news sites, and in this instance the Telegraph, is everything is trending towards the now. It's a constant stream. The word live, trending, update. And on this particular website, you could update the feed, update the stream every 90 seconds as a new piece of information was coming in from the Pistorius trial. It's absolutely fascinating to see the way consumption has affected mainstream news media as well. This is also evident when I looked on Bild. Excuse my Afrikaans, but I think Nieuwsflitser means news flash. So these sorts of terminology that you can see in the stream, if you even flick below this, it says live, trending. All this terminology is being spread across the news world. But of course, it's having a profound effect on the way that apps render information. We're constantly looking for the new. Everybody is pushing down on their thumb, and apps are starting to cater for that. So that's the main app design that you see today. So I guess, how does Twitter think about this? How do we think of the stream as a business, and how have we tried to cater for consumers? Well, the first thing that we did was we asked our users in the context of the stream, what would they like to see more of? What would they like to see in terms of improvements? And one of the biggest things they said was that in order to be effectively distracted, they had to have something that was slightly more obvious in the stream. So the first thing that we did was we made images and photos media forward, and also we made engagements inline. So just within the stream, you could now reply, you can retweet, and you can favor it. So by doing that, we made the stream much more engageable. It was easier to discover information, and it was a much more seamless experience for the user. One of the biggest things I think that the stream has caused is this idea of revelation. So we're constantly looking for information that is new or that is breaking. And it's therefore no surprise that a senior member of the BuzzFeed team has said that Twitter is effectively their front page. And what they mean by that is that people are going to the BuzzFeed app in search of revelation. They're looking for the new things. And this is what the stream is very much starting to cater for. So in order to capture the attention of users, it's critical that we combine these two behaviors that we've seen. So the behavior of distraction that you saw with the meerkatting and this behavior of revelation. And in order to best capture that, we have to make it easier to consume content. So one of the things that we've tried to do at Twitter is effectively make all of our content tappable. So removing the friction between the content and the consumer, and therefore driving better engagement. An example of that I have here is something we call a website card. So effectively what that does is it renders a preview of your website, and with one tap you can go through to that particular destination. Another example of that is a lead generation card that I have here. So effectively for driving leads, it allows you to render information such as your email address, all encrypted, your @handle, a description of what you want that person to download or submit for. And by tapping the button, I can now submit for that newsletter all seamlessly. So it's all about the way that we are removing friction. So I guess this notion of what we call Twitter cards and this idea of embedding code, we're kind of seeing that everywhere. I think a really good example of that is Google Now, which is quite recent, the use of a card system within other applications. Just a couple of more examples I have here. On the left-hand side, you'll see an example of Visa. So literally a tap, let me enter into that competition. And on the left-hand side, you have a simple tap to download an app seamlessly in the background while you still continue within Twitter. So simply tap that Spotify icon, the app will download in the background, and you continue with what you're doing on Twitter. The other thing that we've noticed is the way that content and creativity is being delivered in the stream. And more specifically, I'm talking about the way Vine content is being produced. And I think what you find and what we've noticed is that the people that really get content right and really understand it are the ones that are fully engaged in the stream. The example I have here is actually created by a user. And what I'm going to show you is effectively a Vine fortune cookie. Sounds like a slightly odd concept. But the idea is that as the Vine video plays, you tap on it and your fortune will be read out to you. So, right, so this Vine goes round and round and round. And then if I tap, you can see what my fortune is, hopefully. I am to be the mayor of Boobtown. So it's been really interesting to see how brands have taken on this similar sort of behavior, so behavior that is generated by users. And in this particular example, you have a kind of lottery for the Kentucky Derby. Who is the horse to choose from? So I'll play this one. So I guess this kind of brings us back to where the story has begun. We're back at the train station. And I guess the thing that we've learned is that we have an audience that is highly distracted. It's moving between different sorts of screens, and it's seeking revelation. I guess the first thing is recognize the fact that the notion that one particular medium has undivided attention of its consumer is fanciful. Think back to the Alain de Botton quotation. We need to create content that is brief and that is relevant as possible to capture the attention of users. So parallel consumption is absolutely critical. The second is thinking about making things tappable. How do we remove the friction between content and the consumer and make them digest more? And finally, everything is moving towards this idea of revelation. Everything is moving very much towards the stream. And how do you as brands and advertisers help channel that? Thank you.
The winning speech of tonight, I believe, comes from one Captain Auckland.